When people talk about a Battlefield-like experience, that experience usually comes with big maps, high player counts fighting for singular or multiple objectives, while vehicles and infantry working together and providing that chaos that is hard to replicate in any other video game, for better or worse. Military chaos of random particles colliding to determine the winner for the match. Not many games can probably replicate that Battlefield formula, and there was a lot of failed attempts from various studios with various budgets, big and small, on trying to recreate that experience. So of course it was only a matter of time until we get our own cheap copy from China, and it's called Delta Force. Server? Okay there. Witnessing the Matrix over here, okay, sure. Okay, jokes aside, if you haven't played Delta Force yet, it's actually not a bad game, but more on that in a minute. Developed by Team Jade and published by Tencent, and available for free on PC, which will be later available to consoles, Delta Force borrows a lot of inspiration from existing Battlefield games, more notably Battlefield 2042. Yesterday when I played like for 45 minutes, some guy was literally destroying everyone in Apache, which is quite funny. I'm like, yep, feels like a Battlefield game. To make things more funny, in the mobile version of Delta Force, yes, there's a mobile version of the game too, there was an image in the game files and it was from Battlefield 2042, left as a placeholder, and they had to apologize for that mistake and remove it, for obvious reasons. And to make things even more funny, me and my friend from Battlefield community Martian been noticing a lot of voice lines are literally stolen from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, which I believe are not still removed from the game. Sometimes you can hear them, sometimes you can't, it's really hard to tell. Originally, when the game was announced and there was a private alpha happening, someone on YouTube was comparing the reload animations for all the guns, and they were identical with the latest Call of Duty Modern Warfare games. Identical. And that's the reason why I joke that this game is a cheap plastic copy of Battlefield from China, because the signs are there and it's just too funny to me personally to notice all these similarities and stolen assets, all that, whatever the case may be, it's just so funny to me. You have your breakthrough mode, you have your conquest mode, you have your classes that are presented as specialists with their own abilities, vehicle combat, reviving, all that good stuff you expect in a Battlefield game. And it's all here in Delta Force. And funny enough, Delta Force is not some new franchise either. Delta Force back in the, I think, early 2000s was a franchise that felt like an alternative to Battlefield games, for people that wanted more realistic milsim experience. So it's quite interesting basically a decade later to see the revival of Delta Force in modern times by a studio and publisher that is not traditionally Western culture focused, is basically a wannabe Battlefield game. That's not what Delta Force was back then, and it's just a name at this point. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, but the game itself is actually really good. Anyway, okay,
that being said,
Delta Force, come on.
Let us fucking move on to Delta Force.
Delta Force for the last, what, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, let's give it a good 20 minutes because it kind of deserves it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, for what it is, if you would stand it on its own, it's kind of good. I like it. It's not bad. But when you stand it up how they want you to stand it up with the big boys, nah.
But going back to the present, there's this controversy happening around this game not because of its name or the franchise or whatever the case may be, but it's regarding its anti-cheat. So basically, it's very intrusive anti-cheat, almost like Riot Games Vanguard, that basically snoops around your computer and checks every single thing to make sure you're not running any cheats whatsoever, while Chinese spies are observing everything you do on your PC. Okay, I'm kinda making a joke about the last one, but that's what people are saying. A lot of people are not okay with that because the main argument is that they might be stealing all your data and sending it back to President Xi to blackmail you later.
Here's the thing, this is the part that makes me laugh my ass off when people get fucking uppity about,
well, they're gonna take your data.
Bro, do you have a cell phone in your hand currently?
Yeah, your data's already sold.
They already fucking got it,
yeah,
kids.
They
Quit
already
fretting over that shit anymore. That ship has sailed. If you're an American, your social security number is out there. That shit's been hacked already. So let's be fucking real here. The companies have been harvesting your goddamn data and selling it to the fucking highest bidder since they were able to do it.
I don't really care if someone in China wants to jack off to my Call of Duty KD or my dick pics that may or may not exist. I'm just happy that cheaters are not allowed to cheat freely, and fuck every rich kid that spends their parents' money on cheats because, just, they want to make a name for themselves instead of try to make it legit. Fuck those people.
What?
I know. We didn't cooperate. I know, bro. It's a fuck up, I know.
It's not a fuck up, bro. You're just an idiot.
Yeah.
You were yacked up for 6 months. LCQ, NA State, and you still got 19th? You barely made it out?
I mean,
what the fuck is the point, bro? No, you have to justify it. Explain this to me, bro.
just greed, man. Money. Just greed.
You fucking coward, bro. You're rich! Your parents are rich! You drove a Porsche!
I want to make a career for myself, Rob. Like, bro.
Oh my god, get the fuck out of here, bro. You're a fucking coward.
I play Call of Duty ranked wars on a regular basis, and I do encounter cheaters. My Call of Duty feed was just full of notifications from Activision thanking me for reporting those cheaters and telling me that they got banned. Good! But they're gonna make a new account because it's a free-to-play game and we're back to square one and I'm still gonna see those cheaters in my lobbies. So playing a first-person shooter these days with minimal cheating, that sounds like paradise to me. And please forgive me that I don't care that much if some of my data is indeed going to some honeypot for someone to steal. Yes, it might be not responsible of me to think that way, but then again, I will not be surprised that people that are complaining about this are the actual cheaters or cheat makers. Because, you know, they can't cheat freely. We don't know the full story here, but that's how it sounds to me. I'm sorry, it's not that deep. You know, you either have a good anti-cheat that actually checks what the hell is running on your computer, or you don't have any anti-cheat. It's simple as that. And if you don't have any anti-cheat, people are gonna cheat. And they always cheat. I mean, just look at Call of Duty. Yesterday I played Warzone Ranked for like one match. Just one match. And mid-game we already encountered the cheater. Maybe player-hosted servers is the solution, maybe, but I'm not qualified to talk about that kind of stuff and say that what's right or wrong. I don't know what's right or wrong. I don't know what's the best solution. But as just some random guy that is somewhat decent at video games, I just don't want to play against cheaters non-stop. So that's why I stand with the intrusive anti-cheat. I don't really care, honestly. And maybe it's a bad thing from me, but that's where my opinion is right now. Going back on the actual game, even if Delta Force right now is a cheap knockoff of Battlefield game, I have to give props to developers at Team Jade Studios who are very communicative with the player base and they react to all the problems with respect and dignity. Their marketing is very good as it comes with that communication and the game itself is actually really good. I have to give props to the developers. Like, I joined their Discord, I followed their socials and everything. They're extremely responsive to the feedback.
Oh, definitely. There's a high chance they're listening to us right now. Hi, guys.
They're extremely responsive to the feedback. They literally use their official YouTube account and go to random YouTubers, like, answering their feedback. Like, that's unheard of.
That's good.
That's unheard of.
That is highly commendable and highly respectable.
Now, of course, it's not perfect. There's problems like with any big game these days. Like, for example, the breakthrough mode has too many players. I'm sorry, but I'm so done with brain-dead 64-player, one objective modes with linear map design. It's just pure brain rot to me, so I don't like that kind of stuff. But again, game itself is good. Very optimized, the gunplay is very good, which is a nice mix of Battlefield and Modern Warfare 2019. Vehicles don't feel too bad either, and gun customization is very diverse and very detailed. And that's just me talking about the Battlefield side of this game. Delta Force also offers an extraction mode a la Escape from Tarkov, Arena Infinite, Grey Zone Warfare, which I'm not personally very interested in, mostly because it's not my type of gaming experience I seek, but from what I heard, the people that I really trust and they play Delta Force Extraction mode, it's very good for what it is, apparently. I really don't want to play the Extraction mode, it's just, I'm sorry, I don't find Extraction modes that fun, I don't think they're fun, because I really don't get the point of them, honestly. That's the sad part. Like, it's like I tried so many extraction shooters, see if like maybe I misunderstand something. Maybe I did not play a good one. I tried so many. Maybe because I just don't understand. But no, I just don't like them. It's just I don't find them engaging. I don't find them fun. And to make things even more interesting, according to some leaks, they are making a very big map that could be somewhat play like Call of Duty DMZ mode that is still available on Modern Warfare 2022 client or Modern Warfare 2 client, and a lot of people really enjoyed that back in the day. So if they can make that, that's cool. And if Delta Force developers are indeed developing that, what's stopping them from making them a Battle Royale later on, which funny enough might come out at the same time as the next Battlefield game? Ambitious, sure, but if they have the foundation to make that, why not aim for the stars, right? And honestly, Delta Force has a lot of potential to be the next big franchise that could compete with other big first-person shooter franchises and actually bring some of that audience into their game. Like, overall, the whole package is extremely good, especially for a free-to-play video game. 5 years ago, this game could be worth $60, no questions asked. Anyone suggesting that this game could be free-to-play back then, they will not be taken seriously. It will be an absolute joke. What do you mean we make this free-to-play? Are you insane? This is a $60 quality AAA shooter. Hell no, we're making it free-to-play. But look at the gaming landscape these days. It's a must these days. Alright, that's cool then. Okay, cool. I don't think... Why is it white? Ah! Ah! That was, weird. That was weird. But that being said, the game is not perfect. It has a lot of design decisions that I don't fully agree with. The movement, for example, is a bit clunky. It's not an oversight by the developers though, it was a conscious decision to make the movement feel like this, because they clearly don't want the game to be abused by so-called movement gods. They don't want the players to be sliding or move sideways like crackheads, which makes difficult to track for mouse and keyboard players for obvious reasons. It's all there to prevent from certain players abusing the move mechanics to their advantage. It's funny though, as I was playing Black Ops 6 or Warzone and all that kind of stuff, play this game again it does feel a little bit clunky, mostly because in Black Ops, or like in Call of Duty right now, you can sprint sideways. And because you can sprint sideways, I'm trying to look to do the same thing here, but you can't. It's just like your character's like, you know, walking sideways, and I understand why, to prevent the AD spam. I get that, fully understand that. But like, oh wow, you realize like, oh wow, I got used to it really fast, and it's like, and if you can't do like AD stuff, like, you know, move around sideways freely, kind of gives you that impression that it's clunky, but I know it's not clunky, it's by design like this. And I fully understand that, I get that, but I think they went a bit too restrictive, because even though they're really trying to make Delta Force a bit more serious, opposite to what Call of Duty or Battlefield is, which is a good alternative to those games, which are very arcadey video games, but at the same time, this current Delta Force is very arcadey too. It's not the same Delta Force that we used to play, or people that know about back from the early 2000s. So it's kind of weird we have this very restrictive movement mechanics when I can sprint sideways in Black Ops 6 or Call of Duty Warzone. You don't need to go full Titanfall, no, I get that, but of course not. But loosening up the restrictions for this game will be a very big positive in my opinion. You know what's funny? I did notice that. So, because apparently I unlocked some sort of scar skin, like a pink scar skin, right? And I was like looking, because I'm using that archer lady, right? And I'm looking, what's that scar, right? And I realized that scar is only available to once, like to a specific character or couple of characters. So it's a different class, basically. And I'm like,
yeah, and I hate that shit.
Yeah, I don't like that. I was like at this point, you either give me classes or give me weapons available to each character. And with that movement, you need a playground. The maps in Delta Force, which support both attack and defense and King of the Hill modes, basically Breakthrough and Conquest, are not horrible, but nothing amazing either. There's a lot of choke points on these maps that don't really make sense to me as a player, and it's mostly because how objectives are laid out. It feels either too open and you get shot by gazillion snipers, or too claustrophobic and it basically becomes a meat grinder with no purpose. If Delta Force is really trying to be a good live service game, I have a feeling they will have to go back to these maps they already released and update some of the objective locations to spread the gameplay a bit more. There's a lot of empty space that is not being used, which encourages some of the players to equip a sniper and just camp in those locations while doing annoying post shots at players that are trying to play the objective. And because there's a lot of open space that is not being used, vehicles become more dominant in those areas, and it's hard to combat that sometimes, especially when you are using a character that is not designed to be an anti-vehicle class. You did not just spawn me next to the enemy. Oh my god. Aha. 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 Uh-huh. My dude is so oblivious. He's so he's oh, I'm not. And when all that open space is too dangerous to cross, all players on the server are fighting for 1 or 2 objectives in the middle of the map, and it's basically a standstill because no one can flank around and it's too many players. It's a clusterfuck and it's just not fun. But I want to believe they will look at the data they've been gathering for how players are playing on these maps and these modes and so on, and they will make necessary changes to improve the flow of these maps. Because changes are needed, and I want to believe they will make some changes. And going back on being a serious shooter, even though the whole presentation of Delta Force is really good and a lot of work has been put into it, like the loading screens alone are a work of art in my opinion, this game is clearly made by a developer studio that is based in Asia. The voice acting, the character presentation, the story, how everyone are interacting with each other. It's so Asian, so anime-like, it's just funny to me. And you know what? I like that. You know why? Because it's something different and unique from other big first-person shooters that are available to us right now. I'm a big fan of video games that have a vision, regardless how good or cringy that vision is. But they stick with it. They know what kind of game they want to make and they commit to it. Yeah, it's just like, she's the only one that is like this. The only one that is like this, like, yeah, look, I need to look good on the battlefield. I just find it so funny. The worst thing that can happen if all video games we play are very similar to each other and you can't tell the difference between all of them. And nothing makes me more happy when gaming studios are going for their niche. And I respect that because that means the game was not made by a committee or some Excel spreadsheet of what players might like or not might like, for example Call of Duty. The vision was designed by a group of people that are really passionate about the game and they believe in their vision, and that's why I love video games. Video games are art, and it doesn't matter from what part of the world that vision came from. Someone wants to show that vision and I respect that. Do show me that vision that you have for your video game. I want to see it. Long story short, the game is not perfect, it's definitely not the perfect replacement for Battlefield. The presentation of the game might be too cringy to someone, and the game controls may be a bit too clunky to some people, and I fully understand that. But looking at the bigger picture, Delta Force is a very good first-person shooter that does a lot of things right, including microtransactions. You don't have to buy anything, it's all cosmetics, and it's pretty cheap from what I've seen. And to be fair, the cosmetics in the game for your guns are very good. You know, in Call of Duty, when you buy a skin for your weapon and you want to change an attachment on it, and that one attachment ruins the whole look of the skin? While in Delta Force, for what I've seen so far, changing an attachment won't ruin your skin, and that skin, you know, color, texture, whatever the case may be, it's been applied to all attachments you use on the gun. Revolutionary. I tell you, it's just... wow, I can use my skin properly? Some people love it, that's fine. It's just not for me, I guess. Different game style, I guess. What you doing, tank? That's, yeah, that's, yeah. I mean, I'm not even mad. That's, yeah, you go, girl. You push that tank as much as you want. you push that tank inside. A lot of effort was put into this game. It offers something different for everyone, and more stuff incoming later on, with seasons and patches, all that kind of stuff. And from what we've seen so far, the developers are very responsive to all the feedback they've been getting, so who says they won't be able to make the movement less restrictive, or change something else to make the game feel better? If Delta Force can retain its player base, I see no reason why it can't go that extra mile and making the game better with each update they release. And next thing you know, it's not Delta Force that will be worried about Battlefield, but Battlefield will be worried about Delta Force. You never know, more weird things can happen in this dumb, ridiculous gaming industry. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about Delta Force, I want to say, you know, talk about my opinions, how I feel about the game, maybe talk about little positives and negatives here. So do let me know what you think about it. Do leave a comment, do leave a like or dislike, do let me know what you think about this game, if you played it, if you haven't played it, why you haven't played it. On that note, my name is Tom, also known as the Lanky Soldier. Thank you for watching this video. Please check out my socials in the description, join our little Discord server that is also linked in the description, and check out my Patreon, patreon.com/thelankysoldier, for extra content that I believe you will enjoy a lot. I would not be offering a free trial on Patreon if I did not believe that content we're offering there is not good. So check it out. So other than that, thank you so much, don't be a douchebag, and have a good day.